Today I'm going to be speaking to Dee, so make sure you listen out to what her takeaway is.
My name is Dee. I'm an autism consultant, advocate, ally that I work with schools, parents, kids, adults, whoever.
Mental health is so abstract. It means so many different things. When I say mental health, what does it mean to you? What comes to mind?
For me, mental health is the capacity to be able to learn, the ability to be able to believe in yourself, strength of character, to get your needs met. There's something about kind of linking mental health with mental strength. And it's about the idea that without us all being very aware of how mental health can have an impact on everything, absolutely everything, then unless we're really, really aware of that, then things are just going to continue going down the road that we're at, which is where mental health is not being recognized early enough. And what we're seeing, we might be seeing behavior, but actually what we're seeing is people communicating saying, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And then that leads to mental health becoming even worse because it's seen as a behavior. The child or the person is the problem, rather than saying, how do we work together to ensure that this person feels better about themselves and then their environment.
So if you were to walk us through it.
She starts school, she's 4. People see a girl who's just getting on with it. Nothing really pops up, just a bit odd, you know. But then suddenly she starts not quite getting things right. Her behavior starts to deteriorate ever slightly, just being a bit stubborn, and she just gets a bit mardy. Oh, she's just a little girl, you know, girls can be like that. Reception, year 1, year 2, suddenly more and more friendship issues, more issues around the fact that she just is not getting things quite right. She's disengaging more and more. But again, it's seen as she's not trying hard enough, she's not working hard enough, she isn't doing what it takes to be able to be in year 2, be in year 3, make friends. She's not trying hard enough. She's not being generous enough with her time. She's not trying to share. She's the problem. And we get older and older and older. We're coming to year 6. This child now has been excluded from her first school. She's now at her second primary school. And at her second primary school, she has been bullied. And now the parents are realizing, hold on a second, it feels like the last school she was bullied. It wasn't really her. What's going on here? And more and more and more, this child is being targeted because she's vulnerable. She's vulnerable because her needs aren't being met. As we go into secondary school, she's now on her 3rd school by secondary school. Within 3 weeks, she has caused absolute ructions. She's not going to class. She's being really belligerent. She's being in people's faces. She's being rude. She's being aggressive. She's being all of those kind of things. She's just a child out of control. Her parents need to just get on top of her, really put boundaries in place. It's a parenting thing, you know? Whereas actually, we're not seeing the real story here. We're not open to the fact that this child is struggling. And we're now seeing a young lady whose behavior is deteriorating because her mental health is deteriorating. Okay, we're now into year 7, year 8. By year 8, she is in her 5th school. By year 9, she is out of school. She's in her room. She won't leave her room. And by year 10, she is has disengaged from all her friends, anybody she was hanging out with. And by the way, along this way, she picked friends that just took advantage of her, who were able to see that she was very vulnerable. And those friends really weren't very friends, so got her into a lot of trouble because she couldn't quite see what was going on. Her mental health then just absolutely deteriorated. She actually ended up having a serious mental health condition, is on medication, is not leaving her house. She is unable to engage in any kind of education currently, and there is fear of an eating disorder. So there we have a story many people will hear, have heard, and will have gone through. And for me, I, to be honest with you, I get scared by the amount of times I hear a story similar to that, where the child has been seen as the problem, or the parents have been seen as the problem. And I'm not saying that all parents are getting it right. I'm not getting it right as a parent. I'm doing my best.
We just do our best.
I learn. I'm constantly trying to learn. I'm constantly saying, how do you feel about that? I chat to my friends about it. I say, what are you doing when that happened?
What can we do when a child is 4? How can we recognise that?
Well, I think we need to see every child for who they are. You know, I think we need to see children individually. It's very easy to lose sight of the fact that you have 30 kids in a class. Yeah, absolutely. But every single child is an individual. And just because one child isn't conforming, which another word I don't particularly like, because to conform means you need to be like everybody else.
And none of us are like everybody else.
No, nobody. And to be honest, with my own personal experience with mental health, I've been through some significant mental health challenges, especially over the past year, postnatally. And I have been in a place where I have been incredibly vulnerable, so vulnerable and terrified by how my mental health was very, very, very easily tipped over into not being okay. And the impact then that had on everything around me and everybody around me. And I think, again, if we're seeing children with significant mental health problems, and we're seeing children early on not coping, behaving, challenging people's kind of behavior, challenging people, challenging adults, what I think for me, the important thing is to stop and say, why are they challenging me? They're a child. They want to get it right. They want to be liked. They're human. All kids want to be liked. Sorry. It's just the nature of being human. You want people to like you. You want to be engaged with somebody. Connection is humanity. That's what it is. If someone is challenging that connection and making you feel uncomfortable around them, they're saying to you, I am communicating with you the only way I know how, that I am in distress. I don't think as adults, some of us have the vocabulary. I know that within some of the work I do with families and with parents, I do kind of whole family work, or I do in kind of couple work with parents of kids who have diagnosed with autism, because that's obviously my passion, and who are neurodiverse. And parents struggle with being able to differentiate between, I feel angry, whereas actually underneath it all is I feel afraid. I feel overwhelmed. I feel alone. I feel disempowered. I feel out of control, and I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to defend. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people just getting by, coping, trying to just get through the day. And that's okay. That's okay. It's okay not to be okay.
It's okay not to be okay. There's a great book called that, which I read, and I think it's great. And when you talk about children displaying that, or even adults, see, one of the things that I do, which I think is what helps me be who I am, I'm conscious. Every time I'm around anybody who is acting in a way that makes me uncomfortable and everyone else uncomfortable, I always have to say to myself, maybe because I love understanding human beings, what must have happened, or what must be going through their mind for them to react that way. And if you give everyone the benefit of the doubt, I think we do live in a society where everyone's judgy. If you give everyone the benefit of the doubt, even if your child does something that's horrendous, ask why. What must be going through their mind for them to do that? But I think that takes confidence, and it takes the ability where you believe that being conscious is the only way. You have to trust it. You have to trust that it's okay to get down in the dark with them.
We don't have time to be conscious. We are not going to have time to change what needs to change. But it's true, because for me, on a daily basis, I find myself having to work at being conscious, work at not allowing myself to get, and I do it all the time. I get constantly caught up in the washing up, and there's crumbs on the floor, but I've just hoovered. Why is there crumbs on the floor? I've just hoovered. Do you not understand? Whereas actually, God, there are crumbs on the floor. Whereas let me spend those 5 minutes having a chat with my little one about how her day was, or just playing with her, or whatever else. Who cares about the crumbs? But again, if I'm really stuck on the idea that there's crumbs on the floor, I'm trying to control my environment, because actually I don't feel good when there's crumbs on the floor, because I'm feeling out of control. And again, it's about me being conscious of what that means for me. That means I'm overwhelmed. And I know when I'm overwhelmed, but I have done a lot of work on that, Ife.
Wow, that's
So hard
amazing.
on that. And I think we're putting a lot on teachers to help children that need, well, I think teachers need more support to be able to support the kids. I think
I totally agree. Teachers need so much support because it's your child. And if you can communicate with them, I'm in this with my son. His TA is wonderful.
Yeah.
She really cares for him. And she looks for me to tell her what I think could work. But when she asks me, sometimes I don't have the language to say it, or I need to take a beat to think about it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the things I do with my son is trial and error. Mm-hmm. So when she says he doesn't want to engage in PE, I'm like, well, what sport are you playing? They're like, we're not sure which sport we play. It changes. I said, oh, well, do you give him clear instructions on what he's going to be doing? I have done. Do you have a timer to let him know how long you have to do that activity for? Oh, we could do that. What language would you use to him? Oh, it depends. What time? Like, I can't really get everything I do and give it to you in like a document because it's so varied. It depends. I have to look at him.
Really, really important. But this is really key. And this is one of the messages I'm constantly trying to get across to schools. We have, a child is born, and a child it's a sentient being from the time even pre-birth, they believe within the womb, trauma can be put down through from the mum into the fetus, into the infant within the womb. But from birth, at least we know from birth, this kid is a sentient being. They're learning, they're engaging with the world. We're born to engage, hardwired to engage with the world around us. Potentially sometimes, if we have, if we're autistic, in our own way, but we are hardwired to engage with the world around us. What we're not doing as an education system, we are not engaging our kids. What we try to do is fix things around them for them.
Whoa, that is an aha moment.
Why are we turning around? And for example, let's give the example of your son. Let's talk about your son in PE, yeah? So your son, he's a great kid, he's capable, he's able. He's showing us, I'm telling you now, without even meeting him, seeing him in the situation, he is telling us without words, which is something that we need to get past, that words is the only language. It's not. Without words, he is showing us and telling us very clearly. I could do it in 5 seconds, exactly what's going on for him and why it's not working for him. So nothing about him without him. Okay? We need to engage him. We need to start sitting down. And if we have PE as an issue, then we go to his timetable. We traffic light his timetable. We say, right, you put green on the times you feel good during the day. You put orange on the times where you feel wobbly. You put red on the times where you're not coping. It's not okay. You'll find that potentially PE is a red time. Why? Because PE is notoriously difficult to predict. Okay? If we start to give him the language to be able to say, oh, PE's coming up. I'm starting to feel a bit wobbly. My tummy's feeling funny. Oh, I'm getting thirsty. My fingers are starting to shake a little bit. I'm starting to pick my head. I'm starting to do whatever it is where my body feels a bit wibbly. What's that message? My brain is telling me that I'm not feeling okay. My choices are. And then I have a choice. And then he can say to his TA, I'm feeling wobbly. I need more information. I'm feeling wobbly. I need you to tell me exactly what's happening. I'm feeling wobbly. And he has a card that says, I want to sit and watch. I'm ready to take part.
That is so true. And do you know why I know this is true? So then when I get home, I say to Quincy, Quincy, you didn't join in PE today. Why? What don't you like about it? What didn't you like about it? He says, it's such a long time. I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's so long, it goes on forever. I said, would you do 5 minutes? He goes, promise, mummy, 5 minutes? I said, yeah, I'll do 5 minutes, then I can sit down. So for him, it's him not knowing how long this activity is going to go on. So he'd rather just say, no, not for me, because he doesn't want to be in it for long.
You can think about it, like, time is such a difficult concept, right? And for a kid who's, first of all, trying to manage the sensory needs of having to be in a new place, new people, new smells, new sights, new sounds, new everything, probably everything about that day was different, okay? And if you think about that, to be able to have his sensory kind of platform is here. And if that's wibbly, nothing else works. I remember working with a young lad once, really capable, really lovely. And he was brilliant writer. He was year 6. And I kind of said to him, I said, look, you have to do a piece of writing for this piece of assessment. And he was like, okay. And I said, I'd really like you to write about that subject we were chatting about the other day. And he's great. And I gave him a kind of a copybook, right? And of course, I asked him to do a bit of writing, and I expected him to write kind of 2 paragraphs, really. He could write. It's not an issue. He looked at the book and he lost it. He threw it at me. He absolutely screamed at me and then chucked out the door. And I was like, ooh. And I stopped. And the response from the TA was like, oh, you see, look at him. He's just unbelievable. He just refuses to work. He completely refuses to do the work. And I stopped and said, okay, let's think about this. I'm going to take responsibility for what just happened, because I have asked him to do something, and I'm going to think that the way I asked it potentially wasn't right, or something I've said has upset him. So I went out, took my time, gave him time to just chill out, come back. And I said, like, I'd like to apologize. I can see that you were ready to do the work, and I did something to kind of throw you off balance. And he looked at me and he goes, you think I'm filling that book? You think I'm going to write that much? Those 100 pages? I'm never going to get home. I'm never going to be able to play my Xbox. I'm never going to have time for dinner. How am I ever going to do anything if I have to write that much? In what work? I'm like, oh, Josh, I'm so sorry. That's not what I wanted. I literally wanted you to write this much. Start here on the green dot, finish on the red dot. And he looked at me and he was like, miss, why didn't you just say so?
Oh.
I was like, I get it, dude. Fine. But you know what? Do you think he could do the writing after that? No.
No,
because he was too head up. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to ask you to do the writing. I know you can do it. I'm not going to ask you to do it, but I am going to ask you on Monday to give it a go again. And he goes, that's fine, miss. You just got to be clear with me. And I was like, fair enough.
That's what I mean. But you know what? If it was somebody who wasn't meeting him where he is, it would be, we're going to call your parents. Yep. You're going to be in isolation. Yep. You're not going to get this. You're not going to get that.
But you're also, a naughty let's child. Think about isolation. I've got kids who absolutely will do anything to get into isolation. Why? Because actually isolation is the perfect place for an autistic brain, or a brain that's overloaded, to work. No one bothers you. You're isolated. It's just, it mind boggles. I'm just like, and this kid is like, but I know that if I chuck that, I'll get to isolation, and then I can actually do the work I'm meant to be doing, because I can't do it in the classroom because the lights are too bright, and so-and-so beside me smells of curry and I just can't cope with that, and this light flickers, and so-and-so, this chair keeps moving, and that's this, and the computer screens are just too in my face, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you could just ask to go to isolation. Oh, yeah, I suppose I could just ask. But no one gave him the choice to ask. You have to do something bad. You have to disengage. You have to challenge everybody to be able to get somewhere where you can do the work. I always believe a kid is trying their best. I believe a child is always, always, always doing the best that they can with whatever they have in that moment. Okay. And I like to hear, I really struggle to hear that kid is choosing to behave a certain way, or that they're not trying. Because this is actually one of the more painful, frustrating and untrue things you can say to anybody, but especially an autistic person, when you're trying to teach or explain something to them. Okay, because I'm going to kind of say something now that I heard from an autistic person. Because trying is what autistic people do every moment of every day. Now you'll get this, Ife. They are trying to block out noise, trying to block out the light, trying to focus on what you're saying amidst a sea of background noise and their own thoughts, trying to remember to put their faces into an acceptable position based on what you're saying, trying to police the tone of their voice, trying to walk with what would be considered typical, unobtrusive gait without crashing into something, and then the list goes on. And while they're doing every single thing, one of those things manually, okay, neurotypical people do this on autopilot. They also have to listen and understand instructions and your requests while translating it into their own language and trying to carry out that task fast enough so you don't become irritated with them. Then that negates every single thing you've set up to that point. Because if you become irritated with them, because many of them respond to irritation as a threat to survival. Therefore, fight, flight, and fright kicks in, and they forget everything you've just said. And even if the person explaining doesn't get irritated and trigger the autistic person, then they often expect it to remember the lesson or the task or the request after their first and only exposure to it, which is not possible for many of them. Okay? Not trying, it's literally all they do.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that amazing?
Totally resonate.
Yeah.
Totally. And that thing about irritating, like that is definitely something that really lies with me as an adult, as a person who talks a lot and has to, for me to be able to process what I need to say, I have to say it in all different ways. And I need to say it 3 or 4 times, and you need to let me finish. So if I can see that I'm irritating you, it then becomes, it starts to become overwhelming, because I'm thinking, oh, at what point could I have got to the point quicker? And now they're disengaged. How do I wrap this up?
But then you're losing your train of thought then, aren't you? Because then you're trying to, and which drives me kind of mad, because I feel like autistic people are constantly trying to adjust the way they communicate for neurotypical people. They're constantly trying to adjust how they see the world, adjust their communication techniques, and schools and other people are just not willing to do it. Why not?
Yeah. Why
not? Why is it always up to one person? I don't understand. And this is where I'm also, one of my big things this year is to try and change people's language very, very subtly. Rather than saying behavior, we say communication. Okay, so because we think of behavior differently, if we think of as communication, rather than positive behavior and negative behavior, we see effective communication and ineffective communication.
Love that. Love that.
Brilliant.
Love that.
Okay.
That's it. I love that. I love that so much.
But also this is about, and this is going to be hopefully part of my book, okay? So this is the idea that the ineffective communication, it isn't about being autistic, it's about being human, okay? But if you end up being told to stop behaving or to stop communicating, if you're being ineffective, you're told to stop. But actually what you're trying to do is communicate, but then you're told to stop communicating. So it just becomes, you're left feeling misunderstood, you're left feeling scared, you're left feeling disappointed, you're left feeling confused. This turns into frustration, this turns into anger, and then this turns into more behavior, and then the cycle starts again. But if you have effective communication, you get your message across. People hear you, you feel understood, you feel confident that you're heard, you feel safe, you feel more relaxed. So what are you going to try and do again? Communicate.
Totally.
And then we have that cycle where we're starting it again. And this isn't just about kind of neurodivergence. This is about, and I think if we think about the brain early on in young kids, it's all very similar, you know? And I think especially if you've got, and this is where if we can get it early enough, the mental health side of things, it doesn't have to get so bad. If we're willing to stop and take 3 minutes, people, to sit with a kid, rather than saying you need thinking time, stopping and saying, oh, I can see that you've just hurt so-and-so. You must have felt really frustrated to have hit somebody to get your message across. I wonder what was making you feel so frustrated. I wonder what we could do. Could we find some other words maybe, instead of using your hands? Or maybe we could give you a little horn. And when you feel frustrated, you blow your little horn. And then I can come running over and say, right, you're frustrated. What do we do? Yeah. Or I get out a jail-free card. Or I used a button once. There was a kid who had an exit button. We put it by the door of the classroom because he used to just keep running out. And my thing was, he needs to leave. I'm not going to stop him leaving. That's not fair. He needs to get out. But what I want him to do is to start the process of recognizing in his own body that he needs to leave. How are we going to do that? How are we going to help him just take a split second to stop? So I had a chat with him and we kind of made up this story around, right, if you need to go, you can go, dude, not a problem. I need you to do one thing before you go. As you run out that door, you smack that exit sign. And he's like, what? And I said, I want you to hit the button, because we drew a button, big red, we filled it in, and we said, I'm leaving button. So as he left, he used to smack the button. Okay? For me, that's a step forward. Okay? Then what we do is before that, we start to get the kid to bring the button closer to his desk. He's sitting at the desk and then he slaps the button and he's gone. It does take time, a mind shift, a shift in thinking, a shift in how we see behavior, how we see people communicating, and also not constantly judging. The one takeaway would be to validate what's going on for the child. A lot of time mental health comes from the idea that it's what they believe has been invalidated, so that actually then they don't trust themselves. And then what we're doing then is we're setting them up to not trust their instincts. And if we don't get people to trust their instincts, we're heading on a really rocky road, because then suddenly they don't believe in themselves. And if they don't believe in themselves, that's where we start heading down the idea that people know better than they do. And that's where we have lots of kids who are getting involved in drugs and trafficking and all of that. Okay, it's got to be okay for a kid to say, this is how I feel, and for an adult around them to say, it's okay to feel like that. Everything you feel is okay.
You are awesome. I want you with me everywhere I go. I think the world needs a Dee.